'Cause you run to me, you cover me. I'll forever run toward the one who calls me home. Everything I'm longing for is in you, you alone.
No matter where I run, grace will follow. The Father's love is all I know. I never need to doubt that you want me. You are standing here saying welcome home. Welcome home. No matter where I run, grace will follow. The Father's love is all I know. I never need to doubt that you want me. You are standing here saying welcome home. with you. Life with you. It's a wild, wild life with you. There's no hesitation, no doubt in my mind. You save me from safe, I am brave in your light. It's a wild, wild life with you. It's wild. Yeah. It's wild. It's wild.
You're the first, you're the alpha, maker of the earth. By your word, you created life out of the dirt. Because you hold the world inside of your hands, you can move mountains at your command. You hold the world inside of your hands, you can move mountains at your command. God of glory, you are wonderful, wonderful. Christ the mighty King of all the universe. You are holy, you are powerful, powerful. Lift our praises to the God of all the earth. God of all the earth. Lift our praises to the God of all the earth. All the sea, all the land shows your glory, tells of who you are. It's the love of the Maker, shaping who we are. Because you hold the world inside of your hands, you can move mountains at your command. You hold the world inside of your hands, you can move mountains at your command. God of glory, you are wonderful, wonderful. Christ the mighty King of all the universe. You are holy, you are powerful, powerful. Lift our praises to the God of all the earth. God of all the earth. Lift our praises to the God of all the earth. You hold the world up, so we lift your praise up. God, you hold the world up, so we lift your praise up. God, you hold the world up, so we lift your praise up. God, you hold the world up, so we lift your praise up. God of glory, you are wonderful, wonderful. Christ the mighty King of all the universe. You are holy, you are powerful, powerful. Lift our praises to the God of all the earth. God of all the earth. Lift our praises to the God of all the earth. Lift our praises to the God of all the earth.
I'm so grateful for your patience, all the ways you carry me. You have always left a light on, so I can see. You wait for me.
I'm invited to the table. You are saving me a seat. In your house I know I'm worthy, 'cause you died for me. You set me free.
No matter where I run, grace will follow. The Father's love is all I know. I never
far, far away. I'll forever run toward the one who calls me home. Everything I'm longing for is in you alone.
No matter where I run, grace will follow. The Father's love is all I know. I never need to doubt that you want me. You are standing here saying, welcome home. Welcome home. No matter where I run, grace will follow. The Father's love is all I know. I never need to doubt that you want me. You are standing here saying, welcome home. Welcome home. I'll forever run toward the one who calls me home. Everything I'm longing for is in you alone. No matter where I run, grace will follow. The Father's love is all I know. I never need to doubt that you want me. You are standing here saying, welcome home. Welcome home. Welcome home. You are standing here saying, welcome home.
Hey everyone, welcome to Church at Home Summer Sessions.
Yes, it's an absolute vibe.
It sure is, and I love everything about summer.
Summer. Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
It's glorious.
And to anyone tuning in for the first time, we're so glad that you've joined us. Welcome.
Yes, well, it's a new year and a new day, and we are so pumped to kick off 2021 with some encouraging and inspiring messages from some of Gateway's great friends.
Yes.
So this January, we are hearing from some incredible guest speakers that are going to lift our spirits and motivate us for the year ahead.
Yeah.
So if you're not sipping cocktails on a beach somewhere like I know we all desperately deserve, be here each week because you're not going to want to miss it.
Yeah.
To be honest, if you're on holidays, you can still watch Church at Home.
Oh, yeah.
It can be church on holidays too.
100%.
The whole thing.
And if you missed it, late last year, Rick had a pretty exciting announcement. So let's check that out.
Well, hi Gateway. We're really excited to tell you that we're meeting together again on February the 7th.
Yeah, and don't forget to book your seat online so we know you're coming.
And don't worry, Church at Home will continue during this time, but we're getting together on February the 7th.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait.
And I'm very excited too. See you then.
soon.
Bye.
We're getting back together in person again, and I can't
Yes.
believe it!
So excited.
Oh,
so
we
excited.
finally got to this point.
Yeah.
We're ready, and it's going to be so beautiful.
Yeah.
So pencil Feb 7th in the diary. Heck, put it in pen.
Yeah.
And more details to come.
Yeah. But don't worry, Church at Home will continue even though we are meeting together in person. We love connecting with you all online.
Yeah, it's been so good.
Yeah, yeah. And hey, we love encouraging people here as well at Gateway. It's one of our core values because we believe it really can impact people in a big way. So do yourself a favor and head to the links in the description and fill out an encouragement form, and we will make sure that it gets to that person, spreading the love.
I love it. And let's kick off this year with generosity, church. If
Yeah.
you'd like to give to what God is doing in and through this place, then you can do that via the details provided.
Yeah. Hey, wherever you are right now, let's jump to our feet. We're going to worship.
Welcome to Church at Home. Why don't you stand to your feet wherever you are and come and join with us in worship today. Sing as I reflect. As I reflect, I find perspective here in the best and worst days of this life. You were always on my side. You're in the pain, you're in the promise, and on the days the furnace finds my faith. You're the fourth within the flames. we turn our eyes and our hearts to you today. You were faithful then and you are still faithful now. And God, we invite you into this situation to come and do a new work in us. In this season of pressure, God, make new wine from us. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender. You are breaking new ground. And so I yield to you to be careful. And when I trust you, I don't need to understand. Make me your vessel. Make me an offering. Make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing but all you have given me. So Jesus, bring new wine out of me. In the crushing, oh, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I surrender. You are breaking new ground. And you are breaking new ground. So make me a vessel. Make me an offering. Make me whatever you want me to be. God, I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. 'Cause where there is new wine, well, there is new power. There is new freedom, and the kingdom is here. I lay down my old frames to carry your new fire today. Where there is new wine, oh, there is new power, and there is new freedom, and the kingdom is here. I lay down my old flames to carry your new fire today. So make me a vessel. Make me an offering. Make me whatever you want me to be. God, I came here with nothing but all you've given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me.
Well, good morning. In this fourth and final message of our summer series, we're delighted to hear from Pastor Mark Pomeroy, who's the lead pastor at Elevate Church in Perth, Western Australia. And Marco is a good friend to our family, a good friend to Gateway, and he always has something very interesting and humorous to say about life as a Christian. And today he's going to raise the question with us about whether we are able to abandon smallness and live large for God. I pray it's a blessing to you.
Well, hey there, Gateway Church, or as we prefer to call you, our other Aussie church. It's great to be with you for Church at Home. We've been following your journey through 2020, and it's been exciting to see how you guys have been creative and resourceful and finding a way. So well played, Gateway team. Not exactly sure when you're going to be watching this, but let me say when I'm recording this, we have a home extension taking place just about 5 meters away. We've sliced the back of our 1956 brick home, and we're building an extension on the back of that. But we've chosen to live here, to continue living in our existing home, or what's left of our existing home, and crammed everything, all of our worldly possessions, into the existing home. So effectively, we're currently living in a 40 square meter trip hazard. I like to tell people that our chickens currently have more livable square meterage than we do. And barely a day goes by where I don't kick my foot against something and fracture one of the bones in one of my toes. So that's happening as we speak. That said, we've got word from our builder that in 3 days' time, we will be getting the keys to our brand new extension, and therefore we will be able to move into our brand new extension. But imagine this. Imagine if you were to hear that after the extension had been finished, and our builder, who's created this great new expanded space for us to live in, and has handed us the keys, and therefore the keys and this space is now ours. Imagine if you were to learn that in that moment, we said to the builder, yeah, no thanks. You know, we've kind of gotten used to this cramped living. I mean, toes fracture, sure, but they grow back, bones heal. So we're good. We're just going to stay living in our 40 square meter trip hazard. You have my permission to call us the village idiots if that's what you learn about us. I want to talk today about the need to abandon smallness. And I want to dive straight in to something that just smacked me between the eyes, something that Paul wrote to the church in Corinth. So if you've got your Bible app or your paper Bible, pop it open to 2 Corinthians chapter 6. 2 Corinthians chapter 6. I'm going to read it from the Message version. Now, just to catch you up, Paul was kind of like the Elon Musk of the early church. He would go to various key significant cities and launch new churches. He would raise up a protege over time, hand that church over, and he'd continue and go to a new location and launch a new church. But he would keep in contact with these churches that he'd launched in the form of letters. And fortunately, we've got a collection of many of those letters available to us today, including the one I'm going to drop us into. Just a slice from the second letter that Paul wrote to the church in Corinth. Corinth was a port city in Greece, and the church was growing and thriving there, and he would write to them. And this is one of the things he wrote to them. In verse 11, Dear Corinthians, I can't tell you how much I long for you to enter this wide, open, spacious life. We didn't fence you in, but the smallness you feel comes from within you. I mean, your lives aren't small, your lives aren't insignificant, your lives aren't meaningless, your lives aren't meant to lack purpose, but you're living them in a small way. Look, I'm speaking as plainly as I can, and with great affection. Open up your lives. Live openly and expansively. So Paul did two things. Firstly, he highlighted their problem, that they were living fenced in, that they were living small. And then he laid out this invitation to them to abandon smallness, to move beyond the fence into the wide, open, spacious life that God had prepared for them. About 6 years ago, my wife, Louisa, was working in an administrative job in a high school. And she really has a strong passion for investing into high schoolers. And so she was really enjoying the role. She was thriving in the role. However, she felt like God calling her to a teaching role. And so that required her to actually move, in addition to working full-time, to moving into a part-time course of study over several years in education, so that she would ultimately be qualified and be able to transition from her admin role into the teaching role. Now, just for the record, I'm not saying that admin people are living small. In fact, God bless admin people. I'm not one of them. We love you, we need you, and you can live large in admin. Trust me. That's not the point here. The point here is that Louisa herself felt that God was calling her to move forward, to move beyond a fence in the role that she was currently in. And it wasn't easy. She worked hard, she worked tirelessly. She'd come home at the end of a day of full-time work and then pop open her laptop and spend several hours just about every evening on her studies. But it was very much about her moving forward, about moving beyond a fence of familiarity, a fence of comfort. Now, each one of us have two versions of ourselves. We've got the mini-me version of ourselves. And then we've got the real version, which is the version that God's created us to become. And He very much, in us becoming and fulfilling the potential of who He's created us to be, is about continuing to move forward and to grow. And it doesn't happen automatically. And this is one of the myths. This is one of the things that you can actually trip up on, is simply thinking that if God's promised you something or called you to something, that you just have to sit on the magic carpet and it'll ride you into that place. That's very rarely the case. What's often the case is if God's called you to something, you and we have to choose to move and move forward and move towards it. And it's not necessarily going to be easy, without risk. But as we do that, as we move beyond the fence, the real us grows from the inside out. So I want to talk about what it looks like to move beyond the fence. But first of all, let's maybe run some diagnostics to potentially identify some, shall we say, areas for improvement. Maybe some areas that you might currently be living small. And I say these with great affection, but I have to warn you, they might sting a little. So here we go. This isn't not an exhaustive list, but here's maybe some things. And if, as I say them, the warning light on your dashboard goes on, pay attention to that, because that may be the area or an area or several areas that are causing you to live fenced in. Let's start with this one, being petty. Do you find yourself being caught up in just constantly and maybe exclusively in small, meaningless, insignificant thoughts and conversations? Maybe you're holding a grudge. See, it's almost impossible to move there if you're holding a grudge here, because the grudge, the unforgiveness, will tether you to the now and worse still, actually tether you to the past and prevent you from breaking free and moving beyond the fence into God's wide open spaces. Are you too self-conscious? Now, there's a difference between being self-aware and being self-conscious. Please, for the love of God and everyone around you, grow in grow in becoming more self-aware. If you're more self-aware, you'll be less likely to be that guy. But there's a difference between being self-aware and being self-conscious. And the problem with being too self-conscious is you get paralyzed with thoughts and overly concerned about what other people are thinking about you and saying about you, and it can paralyze you from moving forward. Are you someone that shrinks back? You know, maybe in your workplace, in your sphere of influence, when an opportunity presents itself, you kind of crop yourself out. You kind of wrap down, thinking that you can't do it, you've never done it before. What if I fail? Maybe, you know, afraid of being criticized, or who do you think you are? Here's another one, comparing yourself to others. It's super healthy and super important to look to other people who are ahead of you for inspiration. But don't let that same practice cross over into intimidation, that you're comparing yourself to them and it's causing you to feel worse about yourself, versus jumping in their slipstream and actually allowing yourself to move forward and to grow. Here's one that may be a little less obvious. Are you uncomfortable giving compliments? If you're uncomfortable giving compliments, it could be that it's because whenever you speak well of others, whenever you give a compliment, whenever you encourage other people, the primary thought, the reflexive thought, is how less you are, how less adequate, less accomplished, less whatever, fill in the blank. And so you just don't even give compliments because of how it leaves you feeling about you. What about this? This one maybe is pretty obvious. Do you have a negative outlook? Is the glass half empty? Are you bound to fail? Is it not going to work? Is it just going to be too hard? Well, if that's your starting point, then there's a fence, and it's going to cause you to live fenced in. And here's the final one. Are you unwilling to enter the unfamiliar? The place you're in, the space you're in, the size you're in is familiar, and you've adapted, and even though you think, and I'm pretty sure there's something better beyond the fence, the fact that it's unknown or potentially unfamiliar is causing you to stay where you are. Now, here's a fun game you can play at home. Anyone guess what this is? Now, if you said deer, you would be wrong. This, in fact, is an African impala. Now, a couple of fun facts about the African impala. The African impala can jump 3 meters high and 10 meters forward. 3 meters high and 10 meters forward. And with that knowledge, you could pretty safely conclude that zookeepers would find African impalas very difficult to keep in confined spaces like a zoo. The reality is, however, that African impalas are kept in enclosures with sometimes only a 1 meter high fence. Now remember, they can jump 3 meters high, 10 meters forward, yet zookeepers can keep African impalas inside an enclosure with only a 1 meter fence. And the reason for this is quite simple. African impalas don't like to jump over obstacles when they can't first see where they're going to land. Or let me put it in language consistent with abandoning smallness. African impalas don't like to move beyond the fence when there's no guarantee of the outcome. Now, just over 10 years ago, Louisa and I were living with you. And when I say living with you, it's kind of literal. Rick and Marcy invited us to come and stay with them for 2 weeks. And we ended up staying for 6 months. I guess we lost count. And we were there with Rick and Marcy and Michael and Beth. And I was interviewing for some senior leader jobs for some great churches over there in Melbourne. And, you know, we thought that's where we were going to be. That's where we were going to write the next chapter. And, you know, things were going well through the interview processes and so on. And we were making great friends. And you know, Gateway Church was very much a part of our story in that time. And then we felt God call us back to Perth. And in fact, call us back to Perth with no interviews lined up, no churches lined up, no job lined up, no offers of anything. Just simply God saying, I want you to go back to Perth and I will set you up with a church. Now that church today is Elevate Church, which I have the enormous privilege of leading. But the reality was, at that moment, that we had to choose whether or not to move beyond the fence of familiarity, to move beyond the fence of comfort with no guarantee of the outcome. That is, unless you think that God promising it comes with a guarantee. But, you know, who'd be silly enough to believe that, right? It requires us to be vulnerable when we abandon smallness. And you know, the word vulnerability, we most commonly use that with things like, you know, be willing to show your emotions, be willing to reveal the real you. And yes, that certainly is an aspect of vulnerability, but it's not the only aspect. See, vulnerability includes our willingness to move forward even when there's no guarantee of the outcome. And so if you're living behind a fence, if there's something holding you back, identify what that is, and then start to move. I mentioned earlier that Paul, the Elon Musk guy, from the early church, he would raise up a protege and hand the church over after a period of time to one of the proteges. And one of those was a guy named Timothy. And Paul wrote letters to Timothy specifically, as well as whole churches he wrote to Timothy. And we have a couple of those letters. And Timothy was a guy in his early 30s, which today we might not think as being super young, but in that culture, it was considered to be almost hopelessly young, especially if you were in a position of leadership. You were sort of looked down on, you were sort of frowned on, like what would somebody in their 30s know about leading anything? You're just a kid. And Paul knew that Timothy was starting to get fenced in. And so he wrote some words of encouragement to Timothy. I'm going to read them from a couple of versions of the Bible. First, from the New International Version. This is what Paul wrote to Timothy. Hey, yo, Timothy, God, for the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. The New King James Version has it this way. Paul wrote to Timothy, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. See, Timothy's fence was fear and intimidation and brought on by potentially the people around him and the circumstances and the pressures around him that were causing him to live fenced in. And Paul wrote to him and said, you've got a choice. You're at a fork in the road. And you can either choose to stay where you are, live fenced in, live timid, live afraid, or you can move beyond the fence into the wide open spaces that God's created with love and power and a sound mind. And now this fear that Timothy was experiencing, this wasn't the sort of fear that you experience, when the plane starts shaking. That's acute fear. That's where your vital signs spike almost vertically. That's where your heart rate goes bonkers. That's acute fear. And acute fear is impossible to ignore and pretty much impossible to not respond in some way. We typically would invoke the fight or flight response when we experience acute fear. Timothy's fear was far more subtle. It's what I call chronic fear. It's more of a slow drip. It doesn't cause your vitals to spike. It's just this kind of ebb and flow that the problem is that it's actually easier to live with. It's actually easier to adapt to. It's actually easier to say, well, could be worse, and to choose to remain fenced in by that fear. But what you and I need to understand is that whilst it's slower burning, it's no less debilitating, because over time we will miss opportunities that God has placed in front of us beyond the fence. So here's my question. What's your next move? Now, I'm not asking what's your 5-year plan. I mean, if 2020 taught us anything, it's that 5-year plan's maybe a little bit overrated. But just what's your next move? What's something that's causing you to live fenced in that you need to step over, even though there may not be a guarantee of the outcome? Is it something in your business, your career? Is it a project? Is it an opportunity? Is it investing into someone even though they'll discover you're not perfect? Is it joining a team or leading a group? Is it speaking words of life and encouragement into somebody? Is it taking a next step in your giving and your generosity? Is it maybe not treating your Christianity as classified information? What is it? What's your next move? And as you're thinking about that, let me pray something for you. And I'm going to pray something for you that Paul wrote to the church in Ephesus, which coincidentally was the church that Timothy was leading. This is my prayer for you as you ask the question, what's my next move? I ask God, the God of our Master, Jesus Christ, the God of glory, to make you intelligent and discerning in knowing Him personally. Your eyes focused and clear so that you can see exactly what it is He's calling you to do. Grasp the immensity of this glorious way of life He has for His followers. Oh, the utter extravagance of His work in us who trust Him. Endless energy, boundless strength. Hey, we love you guys. And to quote my little brother Michael Painter, see you not soon enough.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You
What an awesome morning. The best is yet to come, church.
Yeah.
So let's get excited for all that God is doing in this place and all that He has in store for us next.
Yeah. To stay up to date with everything that's happening around here, and especially for details on getting back together in Feb, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Make sure you're signed up for our weekly email, Church News.
Yes, and we will see you next Sunday, 10 a.m. for Church at Home.
See ya.
Breathe in, breathe out. Stop the endless chase. Surrender all and I rest in grace. No need to worry when I can choose to praise. I find my peace when I call out your name. Even to wildest oceans you have spoken. Here with you in this moment, you're my focus. Jesus, you're the air I breathe. You're the only thing I need. You have given life to me. Jesus, you're the air I breathe. I will breathe you in. You are my oxygen. I will breathe you in. You are my oxygen. I will breathe you in. You are my oxygen, my everything. You are my oxygen. You are my oxygen. God, every day as I inhale your love, I live by faith. 'Cause you are enough in all the noise. Jesus, you make me still. I give my heart to your perfect will. Even to wildest oceans you have spoken. Here with you in this moment, you're my focus. Jesus, you're the air I breathe. You're the only thing I need. You have given life to me. Jesus, you're the air I breathe. I will breathe you in. You are my oxygen. I will breathe you in. You are my oxygen. I will breathe you in. You are my oxygen, my everything. You are my oxygen. You are my oxygen. Even to wildest oceans you have spoken. Here with you in this moment, you're my focus. Jesus, you're the air I breathe. You're the only thing I need. You have given life to me. Jesus, you're the air I breathe. I will breathe you in. You are my oxygen. I will breathe you in. You are my oxygen. I will breathe you in. You are my oxygen, my everything. You are my oxygen. You are my oxygen. My everything. You are my oxygen.